Moving on, Israel has long been known as the startup nation, aka Silicon Wadi, and the recent Israeli IPOs on Wall Street only confirm this title. Yet the nation is still facing a serious challenge to its intellectual capital, a brain drain phenomenon whereby Israel's best and brightest take their skills elsewhere as soon as the offer arises. So what can and is being done to prevent this trend from growing? Joining me to discuss is news and features correspondent with the media line, Margit. Thank you so much for being with us, Maya. Now, what are the numbers? How many intellectuals and highly skilled Israelis are leaving the country?
Well, it's very hard to put exact figure on how many people are leaving on a yearly basis. But basically, there was a report in late 2019 by the Shoresh Institution for Socioeconomic Research. And one thing that they said that was very interesting is that for every Israeli citizen with a university degree who returns from abroad, there's a corresponding 4.5 Israelis with degrees who leave the country the same year. So that means that there are more and more educated Israelis, highly educated Israelis that are leaving the country than those that are returning from abroad, from living abroad, essentially.
And could we maybe extrapolate and see how this might affect Israel and Israel's economic environment if this trend continues as is?
It's becoming a growing kind of war zone, the tech sector in many countries around the world. Basically, governments have realized for many years now that for every dollar you invest into the tech sector, you get significant returns, like 5 or 6-fold returns. So a lot of these different countries are trying to woo, engineers, computer programmers, different types of people. And if Israel isn't able to keep up in terms of providing better infrastructure, in terms of providing better educational programs, then some people are worried. Some experts in the tech sector are worried that we might find ourselves with a dwindling kind of startup scene and fewer innovative products.
All right, so really the first of two main questions is why is this happening? What are the contributing factors to shape this brain drain that is pushing Israeli intellectual out?
So there are many different contributing factors. There's been a chronic shortage of labor and human capital in the tech sector here in Israel for a very long time now. There are different things that have contributed to it. Among them are underdeveloped infrastructure. For instance, most of the tech professionals that we know of today in Israel live in the center of the country around Tel Aviv, the Merkaz as it's called in Hebrew. And part of that reason is that most of the companies are based there, but also that it's very difficult to access some of the peripheral areas of Israel, parts of the Negev, areas that are not as well served by public transit, for instance. Another factor that's really big and that many tech sector experts complain about is regulation. Things are overly regulated. It's hard to jump through the bureaucratic hoops that the government has put in place. And basically what this means is that the Israeli government has to catch up and change the way it tries to woo these professionals and to keep the businesses staying here with different kinds of benefits, for instance.
So that brings me really then to my second of the two big questions. What is being done and what can be done that isn't being done to reverse these, to address these issues, really?
Well, the new Israeli government has said that they want to increase the workforce. The Israeli labor workforce that's currently working in tech is about 10%. That means that about 10% of all Israeli workers are employed in the tech sector at the moment, and they want to bring that up to 15%. That means that that's hundreds of thousands of people, basically. It's very hard to quickly train people with the necessary skills and bring them into the tech sector. So what the government is trying to do right now is focus on different communities like the ultra-Orthodox sector in Israel, which has been, lagging behind in this area. Peripheral communities, as I mentioned, that are not living in the center of the country, that are not in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or the major cities. And they're also trying to, the government hinted that they will be looking into educational programs for youngsters, for kids in primary schools, maybe starting the training and the educational aspect of things very young, so that kids will be more interested in joining these STEM fields, in going into engineering and computer science and other tech-related fields when they're older.
All right, well, let's hope that everything works out for the better. Maya Margit, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.